Marisa Tomei is 60 now, but back when she filmed My Cousin Vinny, she was hiding something big. A secret so personal, so unexpected, that no one on set knew what she was really going through. The world saw her steal the show and win an Oscar. But what if we told you it almost didn't happen? What did she keep concealed during the making of this comedy classic? And why? From casting drama to hidden fears, this is the untold story behind one of the most iconic roles in movie history. Stay tuned, because the truth is shocking. The Oscar-winning surprise. No one saw coming when Marisa Tomei's name was called at the 1993 Academy Awards. The crowd was stunned, not because she didn't deserve it, but because nobody saw it coming. A relatively unknown actress at the time, Tomei had gone toe-to-toe with heavy hitters and won. Her role as Mona Lisa Vito in My Cousin Vinny wasn't just funny, it was electric. But behind the scenes, Tomei was carrying a secret. And no, it wasn't scandal, it was fear. She wasn't supposed to win. She wasn't even supposed to be cast. The studio had their doubts, and so did much of Hollywood. What no one realized was how deeply those doubts affected her. Marisa kept her anxiety hidden during filming, pushing through the pressure with grit and grace. She didn't show the fear. She channeled it, and what came out on screen was unforgettable. Some critics even floated conspiracy theories, that Jack Palance read the wrong name, that it was a fluke, but the truth is much simpler. She earned it. Every moment, every line, every glance. My biological clock is ticking like this. Wasn't just a laugh line, it was a cultural moment. Her Oscar wasn't just a win for her, it was a win for every underestimated artist waiting for a shot. But to understand how Tomei pulled off the role of a lifetime, you have to rewind to the moment she nearly lost it all. The role that almost went to someone else. Marisa Tomei wasn't the studio's top choice for Mona Lisa Vito. In fact, she wasn't even on the list. Producers pushed for big names, actresses like Lorraine Bracco, someone with box office pull and an established fan base. Tomei? She was mostly known for soap operas and smaller films. To the studio, she felt like a gamble they didn't want to take. But director Jonathan Lynn had seen something no one else did. After working with her on Oscar, a 1991 comedy starring Sylvester Stallone, he couldn't shake her from his mind. He knew Mona Lisa needed more than a tough accent. She needed warmth, wit, and bite. And Tomei had it all. So he fought, pushed, insisted, and finally, the studio relented. But even then, the pressure didn't ease. Tomei arrived on set knowing she wasn't the favorite. She was the underdog, and that drove her harder. She didn't try to prove herself by being loud or flashy. Instead, she disappeared into the role. She brought Mona Lisa to life with intelligence and vulnerability, two traits that turned what could have been a caricature into something unforgettable. As one crew member said, when she stepped on set, she wasn't trying to be Mona Lisa. She was Mona Lisa. But just as she was finding her rhythm, the unthinkable happened. The studio wanted to cut her out of the movie entirely. The studio's plan to cut Mona Lisa Vito. It sounds unbelievable now, but the studio once wanted to erase Mona Lisa Vito from the script. The plan? Reduce her to a one-note stereotype, the whiny girlfriend tagging along. They didn't think she was necessary. They didn't think she mattered. Screenwriter Dale Launer saw the writing on the wall. He knew what the studio wanted. Conflict for conflict's sake. A nagging woman complaining that her boyfriend wasn't paying enough attention. But that wasn't Mona Lisa. And that wasn't the story he wanted to tell. So he wrote the biological clock scene, a brilliant workaround that gave the studio what it asked for, while secretly giving Mona Lisa depth, power, and purpose. It was smart, it was hilarious, and it was real. And when Marisa Tomei delivered it, something clicked. Suddenly, Mona Lisa wasn't just comic relief. She was the emotional center of the film. Strong, savvy, and impossible to ignore. That scene saved her character, and it may have saved the movie. She went from sidekick to star in a single monologue, Lawner later said. But even as the audience laughed, even as critics applauded, Marisa was still hiding something. Not from the camera, from everyone around her. What Marisa was hiding on set. You'd never guess it watching her performance, but Marisa Tomei was filled with anxiety during the making of My Cousin Vinny. She may have looked confident, but inside she was second-guessing everything. Could she really carry this role? Could she stand next to Joe Pesci and not get overshadowed? Would the studio find a reason to replace her? She kept her fears buried. Quiet. Nobody knew. On set, she smiled. She hit every line. But when the camera stopped rolling, she worried, constantly, that she didn't belong. The pressure wasn't just professional. It was personal. She'd heard the whispers, the gossip, the judgment. Some people thought she'd been cast as a fluke. Others assumed she was a placeholder until a real star came along. That kind of weight doesn't just go away. It builds. But Marisa used it. Every bit of doubt became fuel. She transformed her fear into fire, and it burned through every scene. Later, when critics tried to dismiss her Oscar win, she stayed quiet. She didn't fight the rumors. She let the work speak for itself. Because the truth is, what she was hiding wasn't scandal. It was something every artist knows too well. The fear that maybe, just maybe, you're not enough. But someone on that set believed in her completely, and that made all the difference. Joe Pesci and Tomei's unlikely bond. Joe Pesci and Marisa Tomei were an odd pairing on paper. He was a grizzled veteran, hot off Goodfellas and Lethal Weapon 2. She was the fresh face, the newcomer with something to prove. But once the cameras rolled, something clicked. Their chemistry was instant, natural. You'd swear they'd known each other for years. Pesci, famously intense, took her under his wing. He brought his guitar to set. They sang between takes. He encouraged her, grounded her. He made her feel seen. And he knew how to protect the magic. To help their characters look like a couple, makeup artists had to give Pesci a mini facelift, complete with tabs, hooks, and a hairpiece. It was subtle. It worked. But it wasn't just the visuals that sold the relationship. It was the way they looked at each other, teased each other, fought, and forgave. Joe was everything, Tomei once said. He knew when to push and when to step back. That bond didn't just hold the film together, it made it soar. Without Pesci, there is no Vinny. But without Tomei, there's no heart. And that heart almost never made it to the screen. The real reason the studio doubted her before. My Cousin Vinny, Marisa Tomei, wasn't a household name. She was a working actress, known for soap operas and supporting roles. But when her name was floated for Mona Lisa Vito, the studio panicked. She was too small, too soft, too Brooklyn. In their eyes, she didn't have the firepower to hold her own in a courtroom comedy, especially against someone like Joe Pesci. They feared her Brooklyn accent wouldn't play as charming, but grating, that she'd get lost in the chaos of the film, that she just wouldn't pop. But Jonathan Lynn, the film's director, saw something different. He saw potential. He saw someone who could bring grit and humor in equal measure. He saw authenticity, and that was something no big-name actress could fake. Still, the tension behind the scenes was real. Marisa felt the pressure. She knew she was a gamble, and yet, day after day, she kept showing up. No diva demands, no second takes unless she needed them. Just hard work and quiet determination. She had something rare, said one crew member. She listened, she reacted. She was alive on camera. That spark, the one the studio almost missed, became the soul of Mona Lisa Vito. And when it came time for the cameras to roll, the doubt disappeared. What remained was something undeniable. But the next moment, the one that truly cemented her place in Hollywood history, That wasn't even in the script. That iconic "you blend" line wasn't in the script. Picture this: Mona Lisa Vito, standing in the courtroom, arms folded, voice sharp, eyes sharper. Vinny's in trouble, and she knows it. She gives him that look, the one every couple knows too well, and drops the line that made history. "Oh yeah, you blend." It's the kind of line you quote with your friends, the kind that turns a performance into legend. But here's the twist. It wasn't even in the script. Marisa Tomei improvised it. In that moment, she wasn't just acting. She was Mona Lisa. Sarcastic, clever, grounded in truth. The courtroom might have been full of lawyers and judges, but she was the sharpest mind in the room. And when she delivered that line, it echoed. Not just on set, but across the entire production. Crew members laughed out loud. Joe Pesci broke character for a split second. Director Jonathan Lynn knew instantly that take was gold. It was one of many small moments where Tomei made Mona Lisa her own. She brought lived-in charm, a natural rhythm, and unexpected depth. She wasn't just a supporting actress, she was a scene stealer. And yet, her greatest contribution to the film, the one that defined her character and earned her the Oscar, came from a moment of pure instinct. But before Mona Lisa could save the day in the courtroom, someone else had to come up with the story behind it all. And his inspiration came from the unlikeliest of places. The hidden inspiration behind the film. The idea for My Cousin Vinny wasn't born in a courtroom. It was born during a casual conversation. Screenwriter Dale Launer was chatting with a friend in the late 1970s when he met a guy waiting nervously for his bar exam results. Launer asked, "What happens if you fail?" The man shrugged. "You just take it again." That moment sparked a question. What if someone failed 13 times? Launer couldn't let go of the idea. What kind of lawyer would that be? What if, by some strange twist, that lawyer had to defend a loved one in a murder case? What if he wasn't polished, or confident, or even respected, but he won? And just like that, Vinny Gambini was born. A scrappy, rough-around-the-edges guy who may not know the law by the book, but knows how people really work. Then came the second stroke of genius. Mona Lisa Vito. Launer wanted someone who could cut through Vinny's chaos and deliver a sucker punch of truth. He imagined a woman who worked in her dad's garage, who knew cars better than most men, who had a mouth like a New Yorker, and a heart bigger than any courtroom. It wasn't about love interests. It was about balance, chaos, and clarity. Vinny and Mona Lisa. Together, they weren't just a couple. They were a team. And from a random bar exam conversation came one of cinema's most unlikely duos. And speaking of unforgettable moments, there was one scene that almost didn't exist. A scene that wasn't just funny, it was everything. The biological clock scene almost didn't exist. You know the one. Marisa Tomei, in her polka dot dress, stands in a courtroom talking about her biological clock ticking like this. Her voice rises, her hands wave, and everyone, even the judge, leans in. It's hilarious, iconic, but guess what? That scene almost never happened. The studio wanted conflict. They pushed writer Dale Launer to add a moment where Mona Lisa complains about Vinny not paying attention to her, a tired, one-dimensional trope that audiences had seen 100 times. But Launer had a better idea. He gave them what they asked for, sort of. The biological clock scene is technically a complaint, yes, but it's also smart, layered, and funny as hell. It shows that Mona Lisa isn't just there to pout. She's got her own wants, her own timeline, and she's not afraid to make it known. Marisa delivered the scene like her life depended on it. Her timing was flawless. Her frustration felt real. Her rhythm, perfect. That one monologue flipped the script, literally. Suddenly, Mona Lisa wasn't just comic relief. She had depth, desire, a ticking clock of her own. Without that scene, the film would have lost its emotional core. And Tomei? She might have lost the Oscar. But while she was stealing the show in the courtroom, something even more intense was happening off-camera, in a place where the tension wasn't staged. A real prison, real inmates, and real fear. Most courtroom comedies are filmed on sets, controlled, quiet, clean. But My Cousin Vinny? They went a different route. Director Jonathan Lynn wanted authenticity, and he got it. They filmed real scenes inside the Lee Arrendale State Prison in Georgia. That's right, a maximum security prison, home to actual inmates, some serving life sentences. Death row wasn't far off. The tension wasn't fake. The fear you see on Stan and Bill's faces as they walk through the jail? Totally real. They weren't just acting. They were there, surrounded by people who had nothing to lose. Even Marisa Tomei admitted the energy was unsettling, but electric. The guards on screen? Real guards. The prisoners? Extras, yes. But also actual prisoners. The catcalls, the glares, those weren't in the script. It added a raw edge to the film, a layer of grit that gave the comedy a punch of realism. Jonathan Lynn later said he could feel the cold, heavy air of the prison weighing on him during filming. "You can't fake that kind of energy," he noted. And we didn't. The cast, especially the young actors, walked away changed. It wasn't just a comedy shoot. It was a brush with a world most of them had never seen. And as the story played out on screen, the stakes behind the scenes felt just as real. The fictional Alabama that fooled everyone. When you watch My Cousin Vinny, everything about Beecham County, Alabama, feels authentic. The dusty back roads, the drawling accents, the sleepy courthouse with its slow southern charm. You'd think they picked it straight off a real map. But here's the twist. Beecham County doesn't exist. It never has. That picture-perfect southern town was a Hollywood illusion. In reality, the film was shot almost entirely in Georgia. The charming courthouse? That's the Jasper County Superior Court in Monticello, Georgia. The scene of the infamous crime, the Sacco Suds convenience store. It's real, too. You can still visit it, standing like a frozen piece of film history along a rural road. Monticello and nearby towns were scouted for their authentic, old-school Southern vibe. The production team was meticulous. They searched for streets with the right curves, courthouses with aged brick, and diners that felt like they served sweet tea by the gallon. Even the jail scenes were filmed at the Lee Arrendale Correctional Institute, a functioning prison that added weight and realism to the movie's darker moments. The magic of the setting is that it never feels fake. Viewers from the South swear it was shot in Alabama. Viewers from the North recognize the cultural clash, but buy into the location immediately. That's because My Cousin Vinny doesn't just show the South, it feels the South. And that's key. Because the entire plot revolves around one idea. A fast-talking Brooklyn lawyer, totally out of his element. The deeper the culture shock, the funnier the contrast. It's not just about Vinny stumbling over legal procedure. It's about him trying to order breakfast and getting confused by grits. Marisa Tomei's Mona Lisa Vito plays into this brilliantly. Her New York swagger, big hair, and leopard print confidence made her pop like a firecracker in that slow-moving town. Every time she walked into a scene, she shook it up, because she didn't belong, and she didn't care. That's part of what made her so unforgettable. And while the southern town was fake, the movie's legal details weren't. In fact, what comes next might surprise you. My Cousin Vinny didn't just play courtroom comedy for laughs. It got a lot of things right. Real-life legal accuracy? Surprisingly, yes. You wouldn't expect lawyers to praise a courtroom comedy, but My Cousin Vinny is often cited as one of the most accurate legal films ever made. And yes, that includes Mona Lisa's surprise expert testimony about tire tracks and positraction. Law schools across the country have screened the film to show how proper legal procedure can still be followed in unorthodox ways. Vinny's cross-examinations are sharp. The objections? Mostly legit. The way evidence is introduced? Surprisingly close to the book. Even more amazing? Marisa Tomei's testimony on the witness stand wasn't just hilarious, it was detailed. She didn't just deliver lines, she delivered facts. Her character's deep car knowledge was convincing enough to make her believable as an expert, even when she stunned the courtroom with her bold confidence. But here's the twist. One tiny detail was off. According to real-life car buffs, there was a third vehicle from the 1960s that also had posi-traction and independent rear suspension, the 1964 Studebaker Avanti. Screenwriter Dale Launer found out only after release, when a high school buddy, a car geek, called him out. Launer shrugged it off. "It didn't change the story," he said. And it didn't. That moment, even with its flaw, sealed Mona Lisa's place in cinematic history. The scene felt real because it was written with real respect for the law, just with a little comedic edge. And speaking of unexpected comedic moments, the next one wasn't planned at all. In fact, it came from a real misunderstanding. The two Utes scene was real-life confusion. Some of the most iconic lines in movie history come from scripts that are written, rewritten, and polished for months. But others? They happen by complete accident. And in My Cousin Vinny, one of the funniest and most unforgettable lines was born out of pure confusion. The scene? Vinny Gambini, fresh off his latest courtroom blunder, tries to impress the judge with legal knowledge. He refers to his clients as two Utes. The courtroom goes silent. The judge, deadpan and baffled, replies, "What's a Ute?" The pause, the look. Comedy gold. But that wasn't written in the original script. During early rehearsals, British director Jonathan Lynn kept hearing Joe Pesci say, "Utes." At first, he thought it was a mistake. He asked Pesci to repeat the line. Pesci did. "Utes." Lynn, confused, asked again. "I'm sorry, what's a Ute?" The entire crew burst out laughing. Lynn had never heard the New Jersey accented version of the word youths before, and to him, it sounded like an alien word. That one innocent question, "What's a Ute?" sparked a moment that would go on to become a highlight of the entire film. It was the perfect storm of character and situation. Pesci's street-smart, fast-talking persona clashing with the slow, formal, southern courtroom vibe. It captured exactly what My Cousin Vinny is about. Someone completely out of place, navigating a world that feels upside down. The beauty of that moment is how small it is, and yet how deeply it resonates. It's a one-word joke that says everything, and when you watch it, the timing is flawless. Pesci's quick recovery, the judge's puzzled stare, the silence that lingers just long enough to make it hysterical. Even though Marisa Tomei's Mona Lisa isn't in the scene, the tone it sets carries over into every moment she's in. The clash of cultures, the unexpected cleverness, the comedy rooted in real misunderstanding. It makes her eventual moment in the courtroom, when she flips the case upside down with car knowledge, feel even more earned. It's proof that not all great movie moments come from a keyboard. Some come from listening, laughing, and leaning into the moment. And while that happy accident made it into the final film, the next moment we're about to explore, it didn't. And cutting it may have changed how we see Vinny forever. The cut scene that might have changed. Vinny. Originally, Vinny Gambini wasn't just a street-smart rookie lawyer. He was written as someone with a learning disability. Specifically, dyslexia. That detail was meant to explain why he failed the bar exam so many times, 6 to be exact. The idea was that Vinny wasn't dumb, just different, that his brilliance came through in unconventional ways, and his struggles with the written word masked a deep understanding of people, logic, and strategy. Screenwriter Dale Launer wanted to challenge stereotypes, to show that intelligence doesn't always look how we expect. But Joe Pesci wasn't comfortable playing dyslexia for laughs or turning it into a crutch. The scene explaining Vinny's learning difference was cut, and in hindsight, it might have been the right move. Without that explanation, Vinny becomes more of a mystery. How did he get this far? Why does he keep failing? The audience is left to fill in the blanks. Maybe he partied too hard in school, maybe he crammed instead of studied, maybe he just wasn't a good test taker. And when he finally starts to win, it feels earned. It feels like watching the underdog finally figure out the system. This subtle decision gave Pesci's performance more edge. Vinny was underestimated by everyone, including the viewers, and that made his victory even sweeter. But while Vinny's story was full of rewrites, Marisa Tomei's big moment came exactly as it was meant to, and the way she found out about it is pure Hollywood magic. The Oscar wake-up call. Literally, most stars learn they've been nominated for an Oscar through a publicist call or a live TV watch party. But Marisa Tomei? She found out half asleep on a friend's couch. It was 1993. Tomei had stayed over at a close friend's place, a friend who just happened to be 9 months pregnant. That morning, someone started screaming. Tomei bolted awake, assuming her friend had gone into labor. She started grabbing towels and yelling for a cab. Turns out, the screams weren't from contractions. They were from pure excitement. Tomei had just been nominated for Best Supporting Actress for My Cousin Vinny. She was in shock. "I thought I was about to deliver a baby," she later joked. But instead, I was about to deliver a speech. Winning that Oscar was even more shocking. There were whispers. Some claimed it was a fluke, that the presenter had read the wrong name, that Tomei, a newcomer, didn't deserve it. But none of that mattered. On stage, she beamed. Backstage, she wept. What she'd kept concealed all along, during the shoot, during the press tour, even as she sat in the Oscars audience, was a simple human fear that she wasn't good enough. But that night proved otherwise. And as the crowd stood, and Mona Lisa Vito's name echoed through history, Marisa Tomei became something Hollywood never saw coming, a legend.